when I'm here, I don't want the guy too high on me, right? So I always want to have this frame. My frame is one hand in the same line of his hip, my hand on the top of that hand, because this hand shouldn't be pushing this, otherwise my elbow is not there. This hand is helping that hand there. So I can always escape sideways to that side. The guy is high, I need to scoot out, but he's gonna be tight here, heavy tight, so I can't just scoot out this way here. I have to scoot opening his knees, and that's why I scoot like a snake. So I open his knees as I'm escaping back. My frame is there, I'm always trying to put my elbow in the between of his knees and my ribs to hide, so I hide everything. The guy will probably be looking for defending himself, opening his arms and having a good base, right? Or he'll be trying to attack my choke. And that's what I actually want, because I'm gonna end up escaping to my side anyways. So most of the things we're gonna be covering is gonna be me turning on the side or me attacking his arms while he's doing something with his hands close to my body, right? So just pay attention on this. The guy has the hand wide. You wanna escape your hip sideways. The guy has the hand close to you. You can still escape your hip sideways. But it's better to upa him, as I can have also the same control and fight against him so he also doesn't get chokes or armbars or stuff like that. But if you have the frame and you are tight, you're in a good situation if the guy is not mounting with the control. Let's take a look at some moves, guys.
This is a very easy and very effective technique. My opponent has the mount with control of my head. Notice his hips are not too high. If he's up over my chest, I will need to scoot up. I grab his shoulder on the side he has the head control, and I trap his foot on the same side. I bring my feet up, tight to my butt, and in one motion, I trap his elbow and use my opposite bicep to punch into his side. I end in his close guard with good posture. This time, my opponent does not have head control. But again, his hips has to be close to mine. I'm going to trap his arm by putting my inside arm across his elbow, then my outside arm. I can now pull his elbow down towards his hip and trap it. I post my elbow on top of my wrist to trap his arm tight to me. Notice how my hand is pointing up to keep my wrist very firm. I put my arm on his back so he doesn't take his arm out of there. I trap his foot on the same side of his trapped arm and I bridge up to roll him out of the mount. As I come up, I immediately regain good posture to prevent an attack. I'm going to post my forearm across his body and place my hand on my wrist to create a frame. This is going to prevent him from sliding further up in the mount position. If he's too high, I need to escape my hip using the frame and moving my hips up from side to side to create space. I put my elbow in between my ribs and his knee down to the mat. I bring my feet in close to my butt and turn all the way onto my side, pushing his knees away from each other, with my elbow and my butt. I can get one knee in and then the other. When my knees are all the way to the inside, I can start to sit up and push him back with my butterfly hooks. I believe this is the most efficient way to get out of the mount. Same as the other techniques before, I put my frame across his hip and snake my body up to keep him low in the mount. I turn onto my side to start the escape. I use my knee to kinda lift his ankle as I bring my opposite heel to pull and trap it, bringing my heels towards my butt. I crunch my body so I can use my forearm to push his knee while I bring my free leg under his and start hip escaping to the other side. I have my forearm under his chin. I switch the hook that is trapping the leg and bring that knee to the outside of his hips. I trap his arm to prevent him from pushing on my knee, and I hip out to the other direction to free my leg and regain my guard. This time, he goes to a classic mount position, with one knee down and the other up. I need to control his knee, but I also must keep that elbow very tight to my body so he doesn't get the armbar. My other hand control below his knee, with my elbow tied to his foot. I do a little bridge up, and his foot comes off the mat, so I can use my other elbow to push his foot over my legs and trap it. I crunch my body so I can use my forearm to push his knee while I bring my free leg under his, so I can lock his knee inside my legs and start hip escaping to the other side. I have my forearm under his chin and my other arm blocking and pushing his knee. I switch the hook that is trapping the leg and bring that knee to the outside of his hips. I trap his arm to prevent him from pushing on my knee, and I hip out to the other direction to free my leg and once again regain my guard. I could try the upa, but he's too tight to me. Once again, I want to make sure his hips are low on mine before I execute the escape. I'm going to bring one elbow in, then the other, as I lock my elbows close to my side with my hands posted on his hips. I bring my feet in tight to my butt and bridge up on my tiptoes. At the same time, I straighten my arms towards my head. When my opponent bases with his hands and pushes back, I can bring my knees inside and use my butterfly hooks to push him back and end in the butterfly guard. This time, my opponent attacks the key lock from the mount. As soon as he locks his grips, I have to push the back of his tricep to create space. I look and turn to the side of my arm as I extend it out and rotate my arm, so my thumb points to the opposite direction. I can move my body a little to break his grip and prevent a straight arm lock. When my arm is free, I use to overhook his arm. I trap his leg on the same side and execute the upa to roll him off of me and end in his guard. This is one of the most effective and safe ways to escape the armbar from the mount. I get my hand in the defensive position the same way I did from the close guard. The arm he's attacking is grabbing my opposite bicep and the other hand is under his leg, above the back of his knee. I bring my heels tight to my butt and look towards him as I bridge into him. I get up on my toes and forehead to rotate my body so I'm facing belly down. I bring my knees in, tight to him. I bring my head and elbows to the inside. I must keep my elbows tight to his hip to prevent him from armbarring me again. Now I can regain my posture and end in his guard. This time, when he attacks the arm lock, I wasn't able to get my hand under his leg. So instead, I'm going to grab my own lapel. With the other hand, I'm going to grab his gi at the inside of his knee. In one motion, I bring my knees up and then kick down. At the same time, I push up on his knee to escape under his leg. Now my legs come tight to my butt again, so I can bridge over his leg to trap it. As soon as I let go of his gi, I walk my lower back over his leg. At this point, he can't armbar me anymore. It's important to notice the way I switch my legs because he will be trying to come on top. I keep my weight on his leg and start to turn towards him. I keep my elbow tight against his knee to come on top and end in his guard. This time, he gets my arm and starts to straighten it. I'm going to hold his gi below his knee. I face my palm up and bridge turning to my side, looking to the outside. I use my feet to circle my body around. As I come up to my knees, I smash his legs with my head so I don't end up in a triangle and start to rotate to the other side. The whole time I keep pressure down on his knees. Notice my hand is gripping his knee. I keep moving towards his head and pass to side control. We have two situations, the turtle position and the back with the hooks on. First, let's take a look at the turtle position. A lot of guys defend themselves like this. Push my side here. I'm gonna end up falling here, unless I have my hands. But if I have my hands wide here, the hooks are coming in. You know, you don't want that space there. My knees has to be a little bit wide.
right? My hands are gonna be on my knee, and my elbows in the same height of my body. Now please put a hook in. Put your hand in. Put your hand in. There's no way nothing's gonna pass through that because it's in the same line. Now let's try to put a hook over that. My knees are wide here so I don't fall. Make sure you... He puts a hook here. My hand comes out, look. I always open that. My head on the mat here. Close even more the space. My shoulder is gonna be trying to pinch a little bit so he doesn't have the same, you know, the same level of attack if my shoulders are here. I'm cutting a little bit of the space. Another thing, now from the back, you can hug my back. I'm very tight, right? I'm very tight here. The hooks are not coming in, right? But it's a little bit hard for me to also defend myself because I don't want to stay there for too long. The position there, you're kind of safe, especially when the guy is hugging your hip because he's not attacking your neck yet. So you have the, you know, you can know if the guy is going to be attacking your neck. If he doesn't have this, he takes one out, you're getting out of the move now, right? We'll figure that out in the techniques. But when I'm in this position, if the guy's not attacking me, I'm just defending myself. When the guy gets my back on the turtle position, if I want to defend myself, I need to go to my toes on the mat. You see here? Because now I can start getting out. Look, I can start moving my body. Like this, I move my whole body. You see, it's a little bit different. When you want to defend yourself and rest, you're tight there. You're not as tight, but now you have more ways to get out of that. Now let's take a look at the hooks. Right? When the guy has the hooks on me, he wants to choose one side to go. Normally it's, you know, the one that has above it. So I want to prevent that. I want to always go to the opposite side of the one that it's above my neck. I need always to go to this side. Because if he's in this side, this hand here, I'm neutralizing it. If he tries to choke me, he doesn't have the same pull, right? He's not going to be able to choke me that way. He's going to be able to choke me if he's in this side here. So I need to be always to the opposite side of the hand over. Always use your back to bring yourself there. If you're here, keep me on this side, keep me on this side. I'm not going to go to that side using my hand, right? It's going to be too hard for me to do this. And too much strength while I can use my back to move myself, as you will see in the techniques. Don't try to keep exposing yourself. I'm trying to remove this here. If you want to remove, that's fine. Take one out. But make sure that you're going to be defending after with your leg and not keep it like this. Because now the guy can attack here. Now you're exposed. You don't want to expose yourself, right? We're going to take a look of some defense from the turtle and from the back. You know, follow these instructions and you're going to be really safe, at least so the guy doesn't tap you out. Let's go. This is probably the most important turtle defense. My opponent has my back. I reach back and grip his gi on the outside part of his knee. I move my head closer to my grip, bring my knees across my body and start to sit back. My one knee is up and I hook the back of his thigh with my foot. As I continue to rotate around, I pull his leg up onto my shin and lay back to the mat. Now I bring my knee to the inside and in the butterfly guard. I push his shoulder back to open the space between us and land in a safe position.
My partner has the turtle control and is hugging around my body. I look to the side I'm going to attack and bring my elbow high to his shoulder and slide my arm around his tricep and lock his arm down. I need to make sure I'm above his elbow. There's no way he can pull his arm out. I hook my foot over his thigh to help me move to that side without him following me. My other hand can grab his pants. I lift my leg high and put it over his butt to avoid him to move to the other side and roll all the way over. I keep the grip on his pants and my elbow tied to him until we roll all the way over. I switch my hips and end in side control. This technique has basically won me a match at the 2006 Worlds right before I get my black belt. My partner has the turtle control and is hugging around my body. I look to the side I'm going to attack and bring my elbow high to his shoulder and slide my arm around his tricep and lock his arm down. I need to make sure I'm above his elbow. There's no way he can pull his arm out now. I hook my foot over his thigh to help me move to that side without him following me. My other hand can grab his pants. Now I kick my leg back, but as I do so, he steps his leg up and base towards his side to not get swept like in the previous technique. I release his arm and put my hand on the mat. I put both of my legs over his leg and push back with my hands to end in side control. This is one of the most important principles to know when your opponent is attacking your back. My partner is on my back and he has one hook in. I don't want him to get the other hook in, so my arm is defending on that side until I'm ready to move. I turn to my side and bring my arm in to cup his knee. I place my other elbow next to my hips, so as I start to put my back on the ground, I have to bring my forearm across his hip. That way, he won't be able to maintain his grips and will have to come on top. Notice my leg is stretching back as I turn to the inside. As soon as he starts coming on top, I will push his knee inside of my legs as I keep on turning all the way into him, so I can put my knee shield in to end in half guard. This is one of the most safe ways to get out of the back. My partner got my back with both hooks in and the seatbelt grip across my chest. I want to trap his lower arm with my arm and make sure his hand won't come out so he doesn't attack me with it. I put my feet on the mat and bridge all the way back on top of him. My shoulder should be at least in the same line as his. I try to keep moving all the way to the other side. If done correctly, this shouldn't be hard. I bring my knee up and flare it out to open his leg. My other foot comes over and step on his leg or foot so I can clear my hips. I drive my body back into him until his back is on the ground to avoid him coming on top. Then rotate around. I keep control of his knee until I finish inside control. My partner has the hooks in, and I'm defending the choke. I move my arm over my head with my ear tied to my bicep and the hand over my other ear. That way, my opponent has no space to attack my neck in the side I'm blocking. Now I bridge all the way up and keep on walking up and over to the other side until I get my shoulder to the mat. I can't apply the previous move, as this time I feel he's hooking my leg deeper. So as I start falling to that side, I release the grip on his arm and start to use my form as a frame between my body and his to create some space and make him let it go to the grip that makes me tied to him. As he starts coming on top, I use my frame to push him as I hip out and turn towards him, and my other arm wraps his leg at the knee. I end with his leg trap between my leg in a single leg variation. I'm gonna show you how to never get collar choke from the back again. This time, he has the grip under my chin to the opposite collar and is set up for the choke. I grip the gi at the tricep and forearm and pull his arm down to create some space. I get up on my feet like I'm going to bridge onto him, but instead, I pull his elbow up and duck under his arm to put my head on the mat. Now my knees rotates to the side. I keep control of his arm as I turn into him to end in his guard. This is an even more effective way to escape, but it can be difficult to get the grips. The grip on his forearm moves to the back of his arm, and the one on the back of his arm moves to his shoulder. Now escape, just like in the previous technique. I pull his elbow up and duck under his arm to put my head on the mat. Now my knees rotates to the side. I keep control of his arm as I turn into him to end in his guard. Mounted here, guys. A lot of people, especially the beginners, some of them, they just roll to the close guard because they feel that in the mount, the guy on bottom has too many chances of escaping, and while the close guard, they lock their feet there and stay there. You know, if you have that problem, it's because you don't know how to control well in the mount. And basically what I'm showing in this DVD is not just the attacks, but how to control and move to a better position without you having the fear of the guy defending the move. So how am I gonna do this? The first thing I wanna do, especially to the ones that like to close their guard, I'm gonna lock my feet behind him. So let's say I just got mounted, I boom, come here and lock my feet, right? So I'm already preventing my body to get too much away from his, right? In this position here, he turns to the side, I'm turning to the side. If I have my hands on the ground, it prevents that because he turns to one side, and I'm pushing that side. He turns to the other, and I push the ground very wide so I don't get the upa, right? I don't want him to control my arms. When I get to that position here, I want to make him just go to one side now. So I want to go underneath one of his arms and hug his head. It doesn't matter if I'm hugging here, if I'm holding underneath the armpit, if I'm holding his chin here and making a lot of pressure. The more pressure you have, the better the technique is, of course. But only here is already fine because I'm not going to stay there for too long, unless you need to rest. So I have my base. He only can go to this side. He goes to that side. Look, I'm pushing. He's not going to move to that side. But this elbow here is open and wide, so I can already start attacking right away. Look how my leg move up with my toes on the mat and block it. My knee is closed at that moment. Right away I can underhook this side, and I go with the other knee up. But it doesn't go up here, because that would be the limit of it. And I want to create a limit that is higher than that. So I want to have my feet wide. You see, so the wider it goes, the more I open his arm. Here, it locks on his armpit. So I got there, I can use the help of my arm, and I move wide as my head is going to the ground, so I have a lot of weight in the position. Look how I keep going wide and having this. Now I have the control, look. I can control this arm really easy. He's not taking this arm out, take that arm out, right? This one is controlled, I can always move to better positions without having him defend any of position on the mount. If you know how to get this, if you can get these positions well, you're going to be so comfortable in the mount that you will feel much better than the close guard. And that's why mount is mount and close guard is not as effective, right? So you want to be with the knees wide, toes on the mat, and your heels touching his ribs there. Reason of that is that if the guy is here and he pushes you,
He's not going anywhere because if your feet is pushing him, you want to be low because if you're too high, the guy comes with the legs. Some guys are flexible, come with the legs. Right kick, can you come with the leg? Here. Thank you. He might just, use this to push you and you don't have the control boom. You have to come back in a worse position, right? And if you're here, you're heavy on the guy. You're attacking him the whole time. Look how I'm going to move to the positions that you'll catch in the DVD. So let's take a look at the positions. And don't forget, in the mount, you control first, and then you go to the attacks. Let's go.
I have the high mount on my partner, and I'm in a good position to attack. My partner has his elbow in tight to defend my attack. I trap his wrist, and I use the other hand on his elbow to push up. But I'm using all my body weight to drive his elbow up. As he reacts to push his elbow back down, I use his momentum to swing his wrist over and pin it to the mat. Now I reach under his arm and grab my own wrist, using the monkey grip, no thumb. To prevent him from turning in towards his arm, I'm going to use my elbow and push his head all the way towards my knee. To finish, I roll his thumb up and pull his arm down towards my knee and his ribs. Now I pull my head up, looking to the outside, and drive all of my weight forward to lift his elbow and get the tap. This time, my partner is defending the key lock with his arms so tight that I cannot move his arms. So I push his elbow to his body to bring it to the inside and trap his arm between us. Notice my palm is down with the fingers facing the direction I'm pushing. I base out with my arms to make sure he can't take his arm out. Now I move to the S-mount by bringing my calf under his shoulder and rotating around him with the other knee sliding around his head. Now I slide my knee up over his head on the same side of his trapped arm. I hook his wrist with my elbow joint and bring it to me. I post my elbow on the mat and lean towards his hips. I swing my leg around the top of his head and squeeze my legs together. Now I can fall back to the mat. I control his wrist and lift my hips to get the tap. Once again, I have control in the mount. I have my feet tied to his ribs. I push his elbow to the ground and release the underhook on his head to grab his wrist on the opposite side. I reach under his arm and grab my own wrist to lock the key lock. Now, a lot of times, he's going to defend by trying to grab his own wrist here. I slide my knee up over his head and my hip moves to that same side. My other foot comes tight to his armpit. I move his arm up and over the top here as I move my legs to get into position for the arm lock. I drive my weight over him and towards his hip, and I swing the leg over his head. Now I lay back and finish the arm lock just as I showed in the previous technique. Okay, this is the same setup as the previous technique. I'm in a good position here in high mount and I start to attack the key lock just like before. This time, my partner starts to turn towards me. He grabs his own arm underneath my arm to prevent me from cranking his arm. Now, my knee comes up high behind his head. I pull the arm to me and bend my other leg in. I keep my weight on him and swing my leg over to get the arm lock. This is one of my favorite chokes. Okay, so I move to my high mount, but he's blocking my hips from coming all the way up. I have my feet locked on his hips. I grab his opposite collar with my opposite side hand. I use the other hand to open the collar and help adjust the grip. I need to grab as much of the collar as possible, thumb in. I like to grab first with my weaker hand as my stronger hand has more coordination and can find room easier. When I have a good grip, I turn my thumb up. Now I'm going to push my elbow deep into the middle of his chest. This lifts his head off the mat. I can now slide my arm up and under his chin to lift it. My other hand can now reach in under my arm and grab his collar with the palm up. To get the tap, I drive all the way forward and put my forehead on the mat. This forward pressure is all I need to get the tap. I set this up just like the previous choke. This time he traps my arm so I can't open his chin to attack the choke. I push his elbow across his body and then put my weight on him to trap his arm. At the same time, I slide my knee up around his head on that side. Now I move my other leg underneath his outside arm, so I'm in the S mount. I get up on my toes on the opposite foot and slide my arm up his wrist. My weight is on his body here. Now I can simply throw my leg over his head and sit back and get the armbar. This is how I submitted my first opponent on the 2011 Worlds. Same thing, I'm always trying to move to high mount to attack. This time he tries to block my arm with his outside arm. I switch my grip in his collar, so I have the palm up. I move my body low and to the opposite side of my collar grip. I bring my elbow in and use it to drive his chin to the other side so he doesn't open me as I search for his collar. I grab his collar or the gi at the shoulder with the thumb in. I lift up and turn my hand so the thumb is up. I finish just like the previous technique by putting my head towards the mat and driving my weight forward and climbing my feet up to get the tap. My opponent defends like the previous technique. I switch my grip in his collar, so I have the palm up. Just like I did with the armbar, I'm going to trap his arm at the elbow and swing my knee up to his head. Now I use the collar grip to pull him up, and as I roll back over my thigh, pull him towards me. Before landing, I try to escape my hip towards his. Then I can put the other hook in. I believe this is the most effective arm lock if done correctly. I move to my high mount and slide my knees all the way up with my feet posted into his side and my toes on the mat. I use my elbows to trap his arms. I slide my knee up and I release the head control and slide my elbow down to trap his arm. Notice that my knee will stay tight against his arm to keep it trapped at all times. I move my hips around, circling towards his head, and slide my foot up to get a high S mount. I fall towards my elbow and post it near his hip. My other foot circles around his head. With his arm trapped, I bring his head back and hip into his trapped arm to get the tap. One of the moves that I will most use in this DVD is the triangle. So it's important that you guys get all the details. And also I want to explain a few things that some people have a lot of doubt and think that they can't do a triangle. And I'll explain that anyone can be doing this move here. So let me get you on my triangle here. I have to have my thigh, the back of my thigh here, my hamstring, on his neck, right? And my calf here, putting a lot of pressure. Even if I can't lock, right, I'm still gonna do my best here to do so. Look, can't lock, I lock it there, right? The best I can. Can even have your arm here. Other thing is, the guy looking up is not good for you because he's gonna start making posture. So it's good to control the head, but when you control the head, don't pull down. Because you pull down, you messed up on the move. Because now I'm not actually applying any pressure on him. You can relax. I'm not actually applying any pressure on him because his chin is going towards his chest. So it's important that I'm turning his head to this side. You see here, always towards my hamstring there. Because now he gets choked on his throat. You see how it's tight there? If I really wanted to, you would have the pressure here. Look, right? So I don't ever want to do this. Always want to turn it to this side here before applying the pressure. So then I tried to lock, I couldn't, right? I did my best here to lock my triangle. I want to have this arm going to the other side there, right? But the guy's not going to let me do this. So it's important that this is very tight so I can lift my hip up without worrying of him taking this arm out. Because I really need to lift my hip all the way. Because look what happens here when I lift. His arms go to this side, right? So now I'm going to lift my hip and go with both of my hands, making a frame, one in the elbow and one in the triceps. Don't go in the forearm, otherwise I'm not going to be able, you see, to push it tight to him. He's still too strong to open his arm. But if you're here, you're stronger than him. Then I'm switching this, and look how I'm pushing all the way towards him, moving my body to the side. Because I want him to land with the elbow outside of my hip. And I want to pull him right away. Look, I want to pull him back and control my leg here, trapping his arm. So please take your arm out there. He moves his body, but his arm keeps sticking out. Look how his elbow is still there. You see? Then I'm going to adjust my hip again, my lock again. Of course, I could. You can put your foot here, adjust it tighter. Right? But let's say I can't lock my legs, you know. My hand is going to come over here. And it's not just coming here. It needs to be very tight to his ear. You see, because my arm is going to use it as an extra leg. You see here? And this arm is going to come over. If you can, of course, all the way with the elbow joint on the knee. It's not everybody that is that flexible, so I'm just going to go all the way here. Locking my elbows, you see here? Very tight to the guy. So both, one here, one there.
And now I can start having the pressure of his arm and of his chin looking to this side here, lifting my hip up, not all the way, but just a little bit, and pulling it down. My knee squeezing on the side of his neck. He's a little bit purple, but that's fine, right? So I can tap him out. So just a little bit quicker here now, me closing this triangle. You know, if you can, boom, lock. Look how my hip go up. I start moving, this hand goes here, then I switch, I push. Look how I bring him to my side and start scooting. I'm pulling him all the way so he doesn't take the arm out. He's locked in the position. My hand is already positioned there. I'm already going all the way here to open, escape my hip, to lock the best I can. Then this hand's gonna come here. I'm gonna hold, and I'm gonna make sure that my hip is gonna come up as I pull him down. Now you know how to close your triangle and finish anyone.
Height. He's actually helping me to set up the triangle. I reach down and pin his wrist in his own chest. In one motion, I slide my knee up and over his arm and pull his head up until my knee joint is very tight to his neck. Then I post my hand or elbow on the mat and grab my shin to control him as I roll over. I lock the triangle and finish him as we learned in the triangle details video. Let's take a look at the back attacks here. No, let turtle first. I want to show you guys something. When the guy's turtling up in the position, I want to keep his hips down. I can't let the guy keep on moving his hip. So the first thing I want to do is to control his lower back. My belly button goes in the same line as his belt. Just measure, like, try to put your belt a little bit below his own belt. You see? My shoulder will probably be close to his line, depending on the size of your guy and your size. And my knees are gonna be trying to touch the ground as my hip is gonna push all the way down. So look, I'm gonna be trying to do this, you see, and keep the pressure there the whole time. If I do so, I'm taking something out. He's not rolling anymore. So he's just going to one side and the other. If I have the right timing, I can always fall to one side. Fall to one side. I can always follow him. You see, and he turns. Look how I already fall. You see, into. No, stay there. Look how I'm already falling here and trying to do the same stuff. See, so I'm always connected to him. You see my head a little bit below his. So when I take his back, I know where I'm gonna be. Now, this is very important here. Now, controlling his back is very important, but you need also to know what you have to do from there. If I'm here, connected like I was just talking, with my ear close to him, a little bit, my head a little bit below, my choke
comes in easier. You see, because it's in the same line. My armpit gets in the same line as his shoulder. You see, so I have this much tighter. If I'm far from him and his head is below mine, this here doesn't have the same control. I can't get my hand out there. I have too much space for him to get out. Understand? I have such a better control when my hips are connected and when this here is there. Look. Right? So, do I need to be every time connected to him? No, but you need to know that if you're there, you're attacking that. If you are far, you're not going to be doing this. You're going to be attacking his arm. Because let's see when he falls to the side here. He falls exactly in the right position that I want. You see? He falls to the side here. My legs are too wide. I'm not going to be able to reach that. I would have to go all the way there. Look, and this doesn't seem as natural as this would seem. And not even close to as easy. So when we get to the position, I'll be attacking the chokeholds if I'm close, or the joint locks if I'm away. Let's take a look at some techniques. This technique is really effective when done properly. Unfortunately, a lot of people try to pull the upper body instead of pulling on the hips. My partner is in the Terra position, and I have control just like I explained in the introduction to this series of techniques. I move one hand to his shoulder and the other close to his hips. I use my knee to open his elbow and drive it under his body. My other leg steps up with my thigh tied to his butt. Now, I pull his hips with my elbow or forearm to take away his base and move him sideways. I reach under his chin, and as he defends, I always put the hook in on the same side he falls to. I grip his wrist as I put the other hook in or escape my hip back if I need more room. This is a very important movement. You have to do this move every time you only have the top hook in. This starts just like the previous technique. I have control of his lapel and my elbow is tied to his hip. I grab the back of his collar and slide my knee up to open his elbow. My other leg keeps pressure down on his hip and I rock him a bit to throw my hook in. As soon as he tries to roll out and regain his guard, I bring my knee up all the way by his shoulder and maintain my posture up. I stay tight to him and sit back, pulling him to his side to get the back control. Another very important principle. I'm attacking Flavio's back, but I only have one hook in. To keep him well controlled, as I prepare to put my other hook in, I cross my feet and squeezing my thighs around his hips. I cannot just throw my hook in, as he's defending with his knee tied to his chest and his elbow near the knee. In this case, I'm going to put my foot on his hips or leg and walk it through his quad to kick it in. Still in the same situation, this time I cannot place my foot at his hip or quad
So I'll lock my feet again and squeeze my thighs to his hip. Notice that my feet are not deep, otherwise I wouldn't be able to apply pressure and control his hips. With my hands locked close to his armpit and pulling his back very tight to my chest, I'll pull him backwards, always keeping the side of the head tight to his neck, to open space and throw my hook inside. This time, I can't place my foot on his hips or quad, so I stretch him back, but I still can't throw my hook in. So now, I will use both movements, and as I stretch him back, I'll place my foot on his hip or leg and walk it through his quad. I kick my hook in to end with the full control of his back. Okay, so I have my partner's back and it's time to start attacking. I'm tied to his body with one arm under his chin, always making him think about the choke. I'm going to control his upper arm and pin it to his body. To get my arm in, I bring my other hand out as I post up on my elbow. When I bring the hand back in, I put my wrist under his chin and my knuckles on his cheek so I can lift his head up without having him move it to the side. Now I drop down onto my shoulder, putting the side of my head very tight to his neck, and reach across his neck to grab behind his shoulder. I release the other hand and push on his shoulder to drive my choking arm even deeper. In one motion, I put both of my hands together with the palm facing down, and as I slide my hand behind his neck, I open some space with my head until I can reach my own shoulder. I have one hand locked on my shoulder and the other on my bicep. To get the choke, I squeeze everything together, but also apply pressure down with my elbow on his chest. I have his back, and he's defending the choke with both of his hands. I'm going to use both of my hands on his arm to roll his wrist over and push it down. I'm going to pass my leg over his arm and slide my foot all the way down until my thigh is close to his elbow joint. Only then I can release his arm and squeeze my thigh on his arm, making sure that my foot is always very tight to his body. Notice that it was very important that his thumb was up. If you lock it this way, he won't be able to take his arm out. So now, he only has one arm to defend the choke. I switch my attacking arm and put my head to the opposite side. I post up on my elbow, then my hand, and roll him to the opposite side. I finish him just like the previous technique, reaching across to grab the shoulder, sliding the arm over my wrist and behind his neck to grab my bicep. I have back control. The first thing I'm going to do is use my upper hand to grab deep in his collar and stretch it up. Now I make a fist and drive it back under his chin. I open the collar so my other hand can grab the deepest possible. I make the grip, putting the inside of his lapel on my palm. I come up onto my elbow and drive my shoulder into his neck. My other hand is gripping his other lapel. To get the tap, I apply the pressure on his neck by driving my body forward and bending my wrist to the other side to pull his collar around his neck. And I pull down on the other lapel. Now he taps. Starting just like the previous technique, this time my opponent is pulling on my arm and I can't put my elbow on the ground. I never want to stretch my body to choke him because I would be giving him too much space to escape. So my hand will slide down on his collar and grab the lowest part of his lapel. Then I will bring my leg inside of my arm and lapel and place my foot at the bottom of his lapel, right next to my hand. Now I close my knee in and pull my heel towards my butt. Then I push it down towards the ground, keeping him always in his side to apply the choke and make him tap. This is one of my favorite attacks from the back. This time my opponent is too low and I can't get underneath his chin correctly. So I grab his wrist with one hand and my own wrist with the other hand, like a Kimura grip. I switch my leg over his belly and pull him over to the opposite side. I pass my upper leg over his shoulder to then trap his arm. I pull my elbow over his head and frame it against his neck to keep him away. I move my leg up his body and pass the other leg over his head. I pull his wrist to me, squeeze my knees together, and lift my hips to get the tap. My opponent is defending the choke. He bridges over the opposite side and tries to escape. I keep my guard closed, tight around him to keep him from turning back into me. I have one hand posted on the mat and the other hand grip his lapel. I drive back into him and come on top to end in the mount.